You think that kid who starved didn't want to eat? You think her parents didn't want to escape the ravages of war badly enough? You think if they'd had more passion, the Cosmere would have saved them? How convenient to believe that people are poor because they didn't care enough about being rich. They just didn't pray hard enough. So convenient to make suffering their own fault, rather than life being unfair and birth mattering more than aptitude or storming passion. A virtue is something that is valuable, even if it gives you nothing. A virtue persists without payment or compensation. Positive thinking is great, vital, useful, but it has to remain so even if it gets you nothing. Belief, truth, honor, if these exist only to get you something, you've missed the storming point. An oath could be broken, but a promise? A promise stood as long as you were still trying. A promise understood that sometimes your best wasn't enough. A promise cried with you when all went to damnation. A promise came to help when you could barely stand, because a promise knew that sometimes being there was all you could offer. Alright, what's up, fantasy fans, Cosmere fans, Brando Sando fans? Today I'm going to be remaking a video I made, I don't know, like 2 months ago, but it was right before I started taking this channel really seriously. It was actually the last video I posted, and I ended up taking it down because the video quality and sound quality were terrible. And I kind of just did a review and a gush, and I finished this book like 5 days post-release. I really no-lifed it. Like, I'd wake up, I'd read, I'd go to bed. My girlfriend would be like, "Where have you been the past 5 hours?" And I was like, "I was on Roshar. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." And that went on for 5 days until I was complete. I read like 1,400 pages in like 5 days. At first, I was like, I'm going to read, because it has this 10-day structure. I'm talking about Wind and Truth. It's got this 10-day structure, right? And let me get a little bit more illumination. I know this is a glossy cover and it's going to have some glare, but it's 10-day story narrative. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna read a day, and then I ended up reading 2 days a day, and then I finished it like on day 5 or 6 of me reading this, and I gushed about it. And then, shortly after I made my video, a lot of more popular big booktube names came out and they ripped this to shreds, ripped it to shreds. And I did not take my video down because I think I changed my mind on Wind and Truth. It was just I had really bad video quality. I feel like it was the last video before my Curse of the Mistwraith review, which still isn't as good as like some of my more recent videos in my opinion, but it was a noticeable quality step above what came before. So I want to remake my older videos, and but instead of just gushing about this, I'm actually going to defend this novel. I'm an attorney today, and the at the stand is Brandon Sanderson, and I'm going to defend Wind and Truth, because a lot of people have kind of been tearing it apart and been unhappy with it. I say a lot of people. There are some people that enjoyed it, but I've been seeing a lot of negative about this book, and I believe that it's important to go into a book like this without crazy high. Like, my expectations were high, don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of people's expectations of the impossible are what doomed their reading experience for this. It reminds me a lot of what was going on with like the very last bit of Attack on Titan, which I thought was perfectly done. I mean, I could not have done a better ending if I had tried. But then people were like so up in arms about the end of Attack on Titan. People are up in arms about this, acting like it's season 8 of Game of Thrones when it's not. It was a very well done story. I do think, there were some things that people were hoping for, slight minor spoilers. Like maybe people wanted a Kaladin Moash confrontation, which obviously I was hoping for that as well. They were hoping that Odium's champion and Honor's champion, Dalinar's champion would be a bit more, they were hoping that confrontation would be a bit more explosive. But I feel like all the reveals hit the way they were supposed to. I felt like every character was on their A game in this book. I thought Dalinar's arc was great. I thought his relationship with Gavinor was phenomenal. I thought Navani, as she always is, was great. I thought the Renarin and Relaine stuff was so good. I thought Shallan was great. And by the way, Kaladin has been my favorite character in every single book. This book was the first book that two characters overshadowed Kaladin, in my opinion, and that was Adolin Kholin and Sazeth's son Netero, or son Villano, however however you want to reference him. But I think Adolin and Sazeth had such good arcs in this book. Adolin especially, I was not expecting that from Adolin. You know, I've always thought of him as the best friend of your favorite character, the husband of your favorite character, or the son of your favorite character. And in this book, he became, in my opinion, should be a lot of people's favorite character. His whole little arc with the Unoathed was, again, minor spoilers, but I'm assuming if you've read this, if you're watching this, you know vaguely what it's about. But okay, so a lot of things I see leveled at this. It did not deliver on expectations. I think people are forgetting that we do have 5 more books left. I know it's going to be a long time until we get there, but I thought the ending was substantial enough, was satisfying enough to get you to come back for 5 books, but also to where you don't feel the dread of these next few years. Like, yes, I want Cosmere book 6, right? Like, not Cosmere book 6, Stormlight book 6 right away, but it's not like it didn't end in such a cliffhangery way to where I'm going to be like, I need book 6 now. It was satisfying enough while also leaving me wanting more. And some other things I've seen leveled at Sanderson, his prose and his dialogue. I think people need to go back and read Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, because Brandon Sanderson's dialogue and prose have never been exceptional. He's never been Janny Wirtz. He's never been Steven Erikson. He's never been Brian Lee Durfee, Joe Abercrombie. He's never been Philip Chase. He's never been these people. I'm on a huge Philip Chase kick right now. Way of Dan. I'm savoring every page. So good. But he never had phenomenal prose and phenomenal dialogue. And people are getting into Wind and Truth because it was, a 4-year gap from Rhythms of War and thinking that his dialogue or prose got worse. They've gotten better. I think his prose have only gotten better throughout his career. I saw a substantial jump from Oathbringer to Rhythms of War. But I know Rhythms of War had some pacing issues. But if you go back, I promise you the prose and dialogue get better in Rhythm of War. And then these secret projects, Trust of the Emerald Sea, Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, his prose game got so much better. And in this, there were some awkward jokes. There was one Shallan joke that was not funny. But most of the jokes were better done than they were in the last few Stormlight books. And then you can see with Hoyd, like, he can write witty characters. He can write sharp dialogue. I don't think his prose are bad. I think they were average and now they're slightly above average. But everyone is remembering the highs of Stormlight and is looking at his above average prose and thinking that they've gotten worse from being good. They've always been average to above average, and it's always been his imaginative world building and his amazing explorations of mental health and his amazing character work that has made Brandon Sanderson the household name that he is. It's not a diss at Sanderson. I love Sanderson. This is a 5-star book. This is one of my favorite books of last year. This is a phenomenal book. He will never be the character. He will never, not the character writer. He will never be the prose writer of a Christopher Buehlman. He'll never be all these people because that's not what he's putting his energy into. He's putting out 1,400 words and they're this good. And he's writing all these other series. I think y'all need to put a little bit more respect on my man Brandon's name. I'm not coming at anybody who, if you can dislike the book, I'm just giving reasons why I think some of the criticism thrown Brandon's way is a little undue. But yeah, I definitely think that this book is currently getting a little bit of a bad rap. And I was actually a Sanderson hater right around Oathbringer. Not a Sanderson hater, but I was like, I just don't get the hype around him. Because I was branching out, I was trying more things, but then feeling over Brandon Sanderson, me coming back to Brandon Sanderson, it just felt like a breath of fresh air. It felt like I was coming home. It felt nostalgic in the way that, only like Lord of the Rings and Malazan and Realm of the Elderlings feels nostalgic for me. So, yeah, the hype is real, and I am a Cosmere junkie. I have read every single work in the Cosmere, and I will be reading Isles of the Emberdark day one and reviewing it day one. I think another thing that happened is a lot of people read a lot of Cosmere books up to the release of Wind and Truth, and Brandon Sanderson, like I said, his prose are not the type that I could read days and days and days. And I mean, I did read 1,400 words in less than a week, but these are not the prose. Like, I read like 10 Malazan verse books in a row. Like, I read from Toll the Hounds, read all the Malice Handbook of the Fallen, all the Esselmont books, and all the Carcanus, all the Witness, all back to back without breaking anything else in between. And it's just because I love that world and I love Ericsson's prose that much. I was able to get through the Esselmont stuff, which was also really good, but not quite as good as Ericsson's prose. But I still think Esselmont had pretty elevated prose. I hate that I said get through it. I didn't mean get through it. I meant like it wasn't as amazing as Erickson, but Esselmont is still an amazing writer in his own right. I digress. So I don't know if I could read Sanderson back to back to back with nothing breaking it. And I think that's what a lot of people did in hype for Wind and Truth, to the point where they Sanderson themselves out. Sanderson is not something that I could just read straight Sanderson, no chaser. I gotta have a little bit of something else, but yeah, I just think people are giving Wind and Truth a little bit of a bad rap, and I don't think it's deserved. And I don't know. Let me know if you were happy with it. If you disagree with me completely, let me know down in the comments below. I would love to hear your opinion, whether they align with my own or not. Peace.